Good evening and welcome to the LaRouche Organization Weekly Battle Report. I'm Michelle Aaron. Today is Wednesday, March 12th, and we have a bunch of reports for you because we at the LaRouche Organization and the LaRouche movement internationally are doing a lot. Here's something that you can do. An action that you can take immediately is to sign and circulate the new petition call issued last week on March 8th by the President of the Institute, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, titled, "Instead of rearming for the Great War, we need to create a global security architecture." This petition already includes some prominent signers, and you can go on the Schiller Institute website and sign. Also, the link is in the description below. We're going to go right now to some organizing of young people. Yesterday, the founder of the Schiller Institute, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, led a Zoom conference call to build an international youth movement for a new security and development architecture. Young people from over 17 countries participated in a discussion of the principles of the new order. They discussed what is the role of Africa? How can people learn to see through the eyes of the other? And what science and technology does mankind need for peace? Young activist Kynan Thistlethwaite will give us this report.
So hello to all of you. It's actually a pleasure to talk to many young people from different parts of the planet, because it does require a planetary effort to get this world into shape.
Hi everyone, this is Kynan Thistlethwaite with the LaRouche Organization. We just had a wonderful dialogue yesterday with chairwoman and founder of the Schiller Institute, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, where young people from over 17 different countries participated. I'll tell you some of the countries that were involved. This was the United States, Mexico, China, Brazil, Peru, Nigeria, Kenya, Italy, France, and some others. We had professors on, former diplomats, university students, and activists who were on the call and asked questions of Helga. Helga had began her address by encouraging all the participants to understand what an extraordinary moment this is in history. The Trump administration has done something of unbelievable strategic and historical importance by deciding to talk with Russian President Vladimir Putin to bring an end to the Ukraine war and to restart Russian-American relations. We were just a hair's breadth away from global thermonuclear war just a few months ago with the previous administration. What you have now is that the Europeans are now completely freaking out to the prospect of peace and are now in the process of spending billions of euros to militarize their countries. What this is ultimately a reaction to, though, as Helga noted, is that you have the emergence of a new world order in which you can already see the germ. For example, President Putin had addressed a meeting of his Federal Security Service on February 27th, where he talked about a European security framework potentially being formed, which could then even lead to a global security architecture. President Xi Jinping of China has called for a global security, development, and civilization initiative to bring humanity into one shared community of destiny, as he's referred to it. Nations in the global south have increasingly turned away from the endless wars and colonial looting which has prevented their development for the past 500 years. That past 500 years of colonialism is now coming to an end. Helga called upon everyone to move civilization to the next level, which is a new security and development architecture which takes into account the interests of every single country on the planet. Everyone on the planet, whether in Africa, South America, or Asia, is entitled to bring out the best of their creative capabilities. And that is the future that we are obligated to bring into existence as the younger generation. A lot of the young people were intrigued and excited by this global perspective and had asked Helga questions from the standpoint of what that new security and development architecture will actually look like. What's my role in it? What's my country's role? One person from Equatorial Guinea had asked Helga what Africa's role in bringing about this new paradigm should be. A university student from Nepal had asked Helga about the Oasis plan for Southwest Asia and how his country could be shaped by that project and what they can contribute to it. A participant from Texas here in the United States had asked Helga, how can we begin a conversation about what multipolar actually means? So that's just a flavor of the discussion that was had, but I would encourage everyone to listen to the dialogue so you can actually think about the shifts that are taking place in the world properly and your role in history, how you can actually act to change it. And everyone listening should join us to build this international youth movement, which is really informed by a conception of seeing humanity as one, nations as equals, and different cultures as representing unique truths about the universe from which we can all learn and gain a better understanding. So that was it. Thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Kynan. So one thing that viewers of this program can do to reach out to young people is to go to the college campuses and organize. Free speech, especially on college campuses, is a huge issue right now. With you, President Munich speech calling for the protection of the freedom of speech, directly clashing with the crackdown on anyone on U.S. campuses who dares to call out genocide in Gaza. In this environment, we've got to go out there and organize with the biggest and most truthful ideas possible. We have a report on what happened last week when a group of organizers with the LaRouche organization went to a campus in North Jersey and did just that.
Hi, I'm Daniel Burke with the LaRouche organization, and I'm out here with a team on a college campus in the New Jersey area. It's very interesting what we're picking up. We're talking to a bunch of engineering students. And in general, there's an optimism about the end of the Ukraine war coming. And in general, people are positive about that development, and they're thinking about big questions. You know, a number of people who walked up to the table and said, young people, students, yes, we need cooperation with the BRICS countries or with Russia and China. We should have something constructive, not destructive. So you have, I think, a lot of a genuine response to the reality that there has been a tectonic shift, and people are looking to learn more about what that implies. And so we're sharing with them the Schiller Institute policy and the LaRouche organization policy, and it's led to some very intense dialogues about what is the nature of peace. You know, and I think that's the crucial thing here, is people have said, you know, what is peace? Is peace the absence of war? No, we will not accept that. Peace is a future of mutual benefit, and that's really what we're presenting to people, is how we can get that done. So that's what I got to share with you today. I'm Daniel Burke with the LaRouche organization, signing off.
That's great. Thank you, Daniel. And I saw Harrison out there as well, talking to some students in the background. Okay, we're now going to Europe, where, as addressed in Helga's petition and referenced by Kynan, governments in Europe are responding to the gestures of peace from the United States as warmongers looking for a buildup of armaments instead of looking for peace. While that is happening from many of the governments, among the population, there are voices for peace in every nation. So we're going to go right now to Sweden, where Ulf Sandmark, the head of the Schiller Institute in Sweden, is going to report on a recent peace demonstration that we were involved in organizing on directly this question.
Hello, this is Ulf Sandmark. I'm the chairman of the Schiller Institute in Sweden. I would like to report about the rally we had in Stockholm on February 23rd, because we had a leading role to have this rally outside the parliament, calling for the ending of the Swedish support for the continuation of the Ukraine war. So we had a real coalition there. We had from 5 smaller parties, the NATO organization, peace activists, and the singer. The rally was supported by the Humanity for Peace pictures. It also joined the global action to close bases that was held in many parts of the world where there on that day. The military's bases are also a problem here in Sweden, because the Swedish NATO membership is one thing, but we also have a Swedish cooperation agreement allowing for 17 military bases in Sweden. I spoke about the need to overcome the war psychosis inside the parliament. I pointed to how President Trump has shown that you can overcome the panic and have a dialogue with the Russians. I also pointed to the danger of nuclear weapons, putting humanity in the same boat. We have to discuss with the Russians because that, and an intensive dialogue about nuclear weapons control is necessary, but also has a common interest in the Baltic Sea with Russia to sort out the problems with the underwater cables, gas pipelines. We have a common interest to guard the Baltic Sea from becoming a theater for provocations that risk enlarge the NATO war in Ukraine, I said, and concluded we must all actively intervene to swing Sweden away from the escalation of war. Security must apply to everyone. One country's security must not be won at the expense of the others. And we started a march through the parliament and put candles in doorsteps to remember all the victims of the war. We also Prime Minister's building, and then we ended the march outside the forestry. So in this way, we for the first time spoke out with the rally of the parliament for the ending of the Ukraine war and the Swedish support for the Ukraine war. So that's my report. See you next time.
Thank you, Ulf. And get directly in touch with the Swedish Institute with the link provided below or through the Schiller Institute website. Also, on the question of war and peace, an important intervention was made last Friday evening by the president of the LaRouche organization, Diane Sare, as in her weekly symposium, she took off the gloves on the threat of Christian Zionism. The program was titled The Christian Zionist Threat to World Peace. The program features author and former senior staff member to the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. Also, he's the president of the Washington Institute for Peace and Development, Clifford Kiracofe. Cliff recently published an updated version of his book, Dark Crusade, The Israel Lobby and Christian Zionism.
In thinking about this problem, the kind of irrationalism, the kind of wonderment about how you can be in a situation where we're not even supposed to use the word genocide, that there are people who believe that no matter what Israel does, it's legitimate, even though you have many, many Jewish Americans leading the opposition to what Israel's policy of ethnic cleansing has been. You have this peculiar situation where people make it a matter of religious belief. So, Cliff, why is this relevant, and what is behind these fanatics who are more pro-Israel than many Jewish people and many Israelis?
Well, thanks for inviting me onto the program. Well, Napoleon and his wars in the Eastern Mediterranean and Turkey against Egypt. Napoleon was actually the first to try to inveigle the Jewish communities in that area to support him and his imperialism. They declined. But the British noticed that, and the British, under Lord Palmerston, who was their foreign secretary back in the 1820s, 1830s, picked up the idea that, hey, this Christian Zionist cult that had started in England in the 1820s in this parlor of a banker in the countryside with a few people who got interested in prophecy and futurism, Palmerston realized that there was a political support base there because they advocated return of Jews to the Holy Land. This was part of the Great Game, the British Empire versus the Russian Empire.
What is Christian Zionism? What are the beliefs? Because maybe you should.
This would be marked by Armageddon, a giant war in the Middle East. And, the devil would be, stirring it up. Christians around the world who believe in this, they will be saved from this Middle Eastern and planetary Armageddon because they will actually ascend into heaven bodily. Now, they're not going to have any clothes on. So they're going to, the scenario is they're going to ascend bodily up into heaven and then be up there. That's the basic idea. That's the rapture. Exactly as you put it, this does have a consequence. This bizarre ideology we may think is amusing, or these are really nutcase people, but the fact is that it has a consequence. There's 200,000-300,000 people dead, and we recall in July last year when Bibi visited Congress, everybody was swooning over Bibi in July on his U.S. visit, and then he goes back to Israel and unleashes just an incredible escalation against Gaza. So
there's also a lot of money behind that effort.
Well, gee whiz, yeah, the money, of course, comes from the AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, and numerous other PACs, political action committees.
And I think they said 98% of the people who they endorsed won their election, something like that.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good success, you could say. And so, there's a huge amount of money, campaign money. For a congressperson, you could have a congressperson who's not religious in terms of being, a real obsessed fanatic about Judea and Samaria, but he or she figures, we'll get some good money from the Jewish contributors, so what the heck, we'll just be pro-Israel. So I would regard that as sort of pragmatic politics.
Pragmatic politics, but with a real consequence for a few million people on the planet.
Absolutely. And
the whole program, very much worth watching. The link is in the description below. So Diane Sare was also out and about talking to the population last week, had several speaking engagements. And we have here an excerpt from her remarks at a meeting of the Bangladesh Patriots.
As he said, I ran for U.S. Senate. I have been a political organizer for 38 or so years with LaRouche. I am a trained classical musician, and we are going to be rushing after because I have to direct a choir rehearsal. I think we have to consider that the planet has been here maybe 5 billion years or so, and human beings have lived on it for less than 1 million years. And therefore, we make a lot of mistakes. We haven't solved all the secrets of the universe so far, and perhaps we are not going to. That may be the domain for higher powers. But it is my very strong and optimistic belief that human beings are capable of becoming better. That if you look at the development of mankind, we are in such a moment where an old rotten system has ended, and we who are alive today have the opportunity to establish a new system. And in the United States, we have a very big opportunity to establish a new system. And it begins by remembering that our nation was supposed to be against colonialism and against war. And we should be in a dialogue of civilizations with every culture for the good of mankind. And we can embody that in a nutshell in the United States, especially those of us in the New York metropolitan area, because we have the privilege of living among people from probably 195 different countries, which is a good thing. So I will conclude, I'm optimistic. That doesn't mean I think everything is great, I don't. But I'm optimistic that we are going to be making very big changes if we don't go to sleep. And so I wanted to let people know that the Schiller Institute, which I work with closely, is holding a major international conference on Memorial Day weekend. I would like to invite everyone who is interested to participate. There will be questions of strategy, what is the global situation, the crisis, what are the great projects that mankind should be building? How do we reconstruct Palestine and Israel? How do we develop fusion? Can human beings colonize Mars? And then one panel I am working on, which is on culture and a dialogue of civilizations. And the last thing I will say is that if there was someone here who is a musician or poet or painter who can help with a contribution from Bangladesh, I'm very interested in that because that will be part of what we're doing. So thank you very much for having me.
You have just heard Diane's invitation, which also goes to everyone watching here, to participate in the upcoming Schiller Institute International Conference on Memorial Day weekend, May 24th through 25th. The conference is titled A Beautiful Vision for Humanity in Times of Great Turbulence. And this conference is both in person in the New York City metropolitan area, also online for those unable to come in person. The link to register is in the description below or through the Schiller Institute website. Also, you saw Diane speaking at this event. If you have an event that you hold on a regular basis or even a one-time event, or that you participate in, that you would like a representative of the LaRouche organization to come speak, please reach out. We would love to set that up. You can email in at info@laroucheorganization.com. One more report, and I think an idea of something that you can do to help get great ideas out there is to find an event that maybe somebody else is holding on a relevant topic, attend the event, and pose questions to the speakers. Joel Dejean, who ran as a LaRouche independent candidate in the 38th Texas Congressional District in 2022, went a few days ago to an event hosted by the Baker Institute held at Rice University, the location of John Kennedy's famous Rice University speech. It was a symposium on science and the presidency. At this event, the key speakers were people who had formerly been advisors to the president on science. Dr. Neil Lane, Dr. Kevin Drogemeyer, and Dr. Alondra Nelson, who respectively advised the Clinton, first Trump, and Joe Biden administrations on the subject of science. So we're going to play for you Joel's question that he was able to pose, and you'll hear Joel bring up the idea of long-term scientific development vision that he is posing. Why don't we right now in the United States, can we find a long-term vision for scientific development? You'll hear in the back and forth, the speaker try to dismiss this great idea, saying our structure of government doesn't allow for thinking long-term, something like that. But Joel calls out, you'll hear this, he calls out to remind them about the great President John Kennedy, and the speakers are forced to reflect. Another thing you might notice looking closely at the screen is young people in the audience very interested in what Joel had to say.
Great. Last question. Gentleman standing.
Country would, I think, any.
Yeah, he was in court. But I do not dismiss the question. No, I think the issue of having such long vision on the enormous the things that can be done in the hundreds of years out and with science and technology.
So there's an example of putting big ideas on the table, sticking to it. So several ideas, hopefully on tonight's program, maybe provoked some people to want to go out and organize or continue organizing. Please send in your reports on your reports to create the new paradigm. You can send them into info@laroucheorganization.com. We look forward to hearing from you and to see you again next week.